Okay, let's get into it real quick. So what do you need to know about this particular video? We are going to be looking at specifically those individuals who are arrested by the Social Security Administration, by and through the Office of Inspector General, basically doing investigations that led to a police force, a sheriff's office, etc., an agent arresting these people. Now, these are directly from the Social Security Administration's Office of Inspector General as to who are beneficiary recipients who have now been arrested as a result of usually fraud of their Social Security benefits or Social Security benefits of someone else. The first one that we're going to look at is November 13th, 2025. So this happened basically like 5-6-ish days ago. Tampa, Florida. United States Attorney Gregory W. Kehoe announced the unsealing of an indictment charging a Jane Doe. So now we get to learn who this lady actually was, because now it is published to the general public. Her name was Rosario Alanis. She was 69 from Bradenton, with 1 count of passport fraud, 2 counts of Social Security fraud, card fraud, or Social Security fraud in general, and 5 counts of wire fraud, and 2 counts of theft of government funds. If convicted, Doe faces a maximum penalty, 20 years in prison for each wire fraud count, up to 10 years in prison for the passport fraud count and each theft offense, and a maximum of 5 years in prison for each count of Social Security fraud. Now, as you notice, Social Security fraud does not have a lot of jail time that goes with it. Should it be increased? Yeah. But right now, you could basically commit Social Security fraud, and the likelihood of getting a lot of jail time as a result of it is very low compared to these others, 20-year sentence, stuff like that. According to the indictment, Doe, which we know in this is Rosario Alanis, fraudulently obtained a United States passport, and using this fraudulently identity, received supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits. So she got food stamps from the Department of Agriculture, as well as benefits from the Social Security Administration through disability insurance benefits. So she cheated and got, SNAP benefits that she wasn't supposed to have. She cheated and got SSDI benefits that she wasn't supposed to have. So Rosario failed to disclose employment, fraudulently securing payments when either no payment was due or in a greater amount than authorized. Doe has received government benefits of approximately $183,800. So in other words, she snookered out of the government almost $200,000 worth of benefits that she should not have had. An indictment is merely a formal charge that the defendant has committed one or more violations of federal criminal law, and every defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. This case was investigated by the U.S. Department of State's Diplomatic Security Service, Social Security Administration as well, its Office of Inspector General, Homeland Security, Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Basically, they were all looking for, because this is an individual who's getting away with a lot of money that was being stolen. Okay. Now, with that said, let's go over here. We have November 4th, 2025. Seaside woman pleads guilty in federal court to theft of government benefits. Okay. Portland, Oregon. A Seaside, Oregon woman pled guilty today to stealing more than $567,000 in pandemic unemployment benefits from the Oregon Employment Department, OED. Tamara Fulmer, 47, pled guilty today to 1 count of theft of government benefits. According to the court documents, between May 2020 and October 2021, Fulmer used the personal information of 27 individuals to fraudulently apply for pandemic unemployment insurance benefits. Based on Fulmer's misrepresentations, OED paid out over $500,000 in unemployment benefits to her, it's unemployment insurance benefits. Fulmer deposited at least 236 of these checks, totaling $68,773 into her own personal account, and cashed many of the UI checks at a gas station in Seaside without the applicant's knowledge or permission. All right, OED paid Fulmer an additional $13,353 after she submitted her own fraudulent UI application, where she falsely claimed she had not applied for or received disability despite receiving disability payments since 2004. Here's where the Social Security Administration gets involved. On February 19th of 2025, this is like recent. A federal grand jury in Portland returned a one-count indictment charging Fulmer with theft of government property. Fulmer faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, a $250,000 fine, and 3 years of supervised release. She will be sentenced on February 18th, 2026 before a U.S. District Court judge. So she was committing a lot of fraud during the Biden era. As a part of the plea agreement, Fulmer has agreed to forfeit the proceeds for her criminal activity and pay the $581,283 in restitution as recommended by the government. So they're giving her a deal. This case was investigated by the U.S. Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, yada, yada, yada. Anyone with information about allegations of attempted fraud, including COVID-19 fraud, basically call the hotline 866-720-5721. So this is a good example where somebody got a lot of money out of these groups, and now basically the government is making a deal with her, and they're saying, hey, let's see, here it is, plea agreement. Fulmer has agreed to forfeit the proceeds from her criminal activity and pays. So basically, her criminal activity made money. So maybe our politicians could learn something from her. And she's agreed to take that money to pay back the $581,283 in restitution as recommended by the government. So the government worked a deal with her because apparently she's profitable. Apparently she's a profitable person. She's a person that, basically frauded the government and made money. I can think of only one of those two elements and our politicians actually working out because our politicians mostly just fraud the government and don't actually make money doing it. Next one, a Mexican national indicted for immigration fraud and identity theft crimes. We're going to be seeing a lot of these because of the Trump administration. November 14th, 2025, Tampa, Florida. Of course. United States Attorney Gregory W. Kehoe announced the unsealing of an indictment charging Juan Jaramillo Vasquez, aka Juan Vasquez, 49 of Bradenton, with one count of illegal reentry by a deported alien, 2 counts of Social Security fraud, and 1 count of aggravated identity theft. If convicted, Vasquez faces a minimum of 2 years in prison for aggravated identity theft, a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment for each of the Social Security fraud counts, and up to 2 years in prison for the illegal reentry. Okay. According to the indictment, Vasquez was found to be voluntarily present in the United States after having been previously removed from the United States 3 times in 2012. This dude made it in and got removed 3 times in 2012. This man obviously knows of tunnels that we don't. Vasquez had not received the consent of the Attorney General or Security of Homeland Security to reapply for admission. Vasquez is a citizen of Mexico. Vasquez also fraudulently used a Social Security number related to victim 1 to gain employment and tax benefits, fraudulently representing himself to be an employer and the Social Security Administration. What a guy. An indictment is merely blah, 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 formal charge. You know that. They have to actually go and go through the process of the trial. This case was investigated by a whole bunch of groups, U.S. Department of State's Diplomatic Security Service, Social Security Administration, Homeland Security, yada, yada, yada. This case is part of the Operation Take Back America, a nationwide initiative that marshals the full resources of the Department of Justice to repel the invasion of illegal immigration, achieve the total elimination of cartels and transnational criminal organizations, and protect our communities from the perpetrators of violent crime. Now, just to be clear, you're going to see a lot of these. And these are the ones where basically they're repeat offenders. Those are mostly the ones that we're seeing right now, where they leave the U.S., they get right back in it. They leave the U.S., they get right back in it. They buy fake Social Security numbers. They buy, fake identification information. The biggest problem that the Social Security Administration should fix, in my opinion, over this year during the Trump administration is finding out which employees at the SSA claims representatives are feeding Social Security numbers of people that might have, potentially passed away but didn't, blah, blah, blah. But basically the green ripe Social Security numbers that these types of individuals can use to go ahead and get earnings, get a job, get a bank account, etc. open. I think if the Trump administration can figure out who is abusing being a claims representative and looking into the system and pulling Social Security numbers and playing that game, if they can do that, they will have a much cleaner system. But the main problem was during Trump's first administration, during Biden's only administration, the bottom line is, at the end of the day, there's been an unhealthy amount of Social Security employees who were basically taking Social Security numbers and then selling them on the black market to people to go ahead and, putting it very simply, be abused and used by these immigrants coming into this country. So if Trump can get that going in the right direction, and that be his goal for the end of 2025 to make sure that that gets cleaned up, that would be a very, very strong going forward situation. So, that would be very interesting going forward. All right. With that said, I've got to go into a meeting at 2:00. This is the best I'm going to be throughout the day because I'm on all that cold medicine. So this is like as good as I'm going to get. I may be live tonight. I probably won't. But either way, I will catch you a little bit later. And we will rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, please remember, I don't do Medicare questions. If you have Medicare questions, call this phone number. That's the group to call. Ask Chapter about doing a tune-up on your benefits. Also, please remember to go to YouTube or go to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, throw some stars up there if you like. Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed, and clicked on Disability Attorney in America. If you need one of those private consultations, that's fine. Mini contract is below. If you need representation for disability benefits, you know who to call. I will catch you a little bit later, and we'll rock and roll from there. Thanks so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.